Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to another video, and really important, I want you all to please stick with this entire video, not because I'm just trying to get watch time, but because I'm gonna first show you the Nephilim and the giants, and then after I'm gonna show you what a lot of people don't understand, and that's what the majority of giants that we've seen actually are. So you're gonna have to watch the whole video, okay? The very beginning, I'm gonna show you the Nephilim, and then I'm gonna show you what the majority of giants really are, so stay with me. Genesis 6 tells us, "And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown." Okay, so let's go over this verse, where it says, because I know a lot of people get this wrong. I see so many people that misunderstand this. They think this is talking about the flood, and it's not. So let's take a look at the verse, okay? It says, there were giants in the earth in those days. Okay, what days is it talking about? Well, if you look above, it says, "And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, and then they took wives, any ones they wanted." So that's when it's talking about. That's when the Nephilim and the giants first began. So then, this is where people get confused, okay? So then it says, and after that. Okay, what does it mean? And after what? Well, let's look up at the verse again. What does it say? It says right here, when God said, His spirit will not strive with man, for he is also flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. Okay, that's what it's referring to. After God changed, because we know that Noah and Adam and all those before had been living to be around 900 years old. So even after God changed man to only living 120 years, that's what it's referring to. You know, it hasn't even gotten to Noah and the flood in the Bible yet. And a lot of people are getting confused and thinking it's talking about after the flood. But we can see here clearly that it's not. Okay, so here in this verse right here, we can see that it says that Noah was just a man and perfect in his generations. And he had his three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and the only people that went on the ark with them were their wives. So we know that no Nephilim made it onto the ark, and no Nephilim was corrupted in any of the DNA of any of the people on the ark. Okay, now I've heard people theorize or try to say that Nephilim somehow survived the flood, right? Like they went down below the earth and lived, or they got in caves. But if we look at Genesis 7, okay, we're going to go down to 23, and it says, "And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven. And they were destroyed from the earth, and Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark." Okay, so it's right here in the Bible. Nothing else survived. no Nephilim could have hidden anywhere. I mean, this is proof right here. It says in the Bible. And now there's one other passage in the Bible that I'm going to go over that gives a lot of people confusion, but we're going to talk about it so that I can prove to you that Nephilim did not make it after the flood. I mean, that's a big reason that God flooded the earth, was because man's DNA, his perfect DNA he had created, had been corrupted by the angels. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so here we're going to Numbers 13. And Numbers 13 talks about whenever Moses and the Jews had come out of Egypt, right? And he had taken them to the land of Canaan, the land of milk and honey. And the Lord told Moses to send one person of every tribe to go and scout the land that he had made for them, and then to come back and give a report. So after 40 days, the men came back to give their report. And what they said was, they said that the land was, yes, full of milk and honey, but that the numbers were great and the people were very big. Let's see what it says right here. So Numbers 13 and 32. And it says, "And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. And all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight." Well, notice it says an evil report, not a true report. So if you look at some other translations as well, it also says a bad report. And if you look at the Hebrew for this exact terminology, it also, another way that it's phrased is a slanderous report, or another meaning for it. And we know a slanderous report is a lie or a false report, right? So they were absolutely lying. Now, if we look at Numbers 14, okay, this goes into where God is angry because the people start murmuring and say that, they can't beat giants and they're going to die and they want to go back to Egypt, and they're about to stone Moses and Aaron, and God intervenes, and he's very angry and upset with them, right? So he tells them none of them are going to see the land. They're going to have to wander in the wilderness for 40 years until anyone 20 and above has died. That's their punishment, right? But if we go down through Numbers 14, then we can see right here where in 14:35 it says, "The Lord have said, I will surely do it unto all this evil congregation that are gathered together against me in the wilderness. They shall be consumed, and there they shall die." And then it says, "And the men which Moses sent to search the land, who returned and made all the congregation to murmur against him by bringing up a slander upon the land," a lie upon the land. And so then we see, okay, so God, what did he do with the men who lied? Well, he struck them dead with a plague right there. So they all died. Now, if it had just been that they were all scared and wanted to run away out of fear, then they would have wandered around in the desert too, or else God would have killed them all. But we know that Moses intervened for them. But why these men, specifically these men, were struck dead is because they lied. They gave a false report. Now, granted, yes, there could have been a tribe that was taller than most or big, but all the Nephilim were gone. And that's how God knew they were lying. They weren't telling the truth. I mean, of course, God knows, but that's how we know from looking at this scripture. So a lot of people think that this part of the scripture means that there definitely were Nephilim after the flood. But there wasn't. There absolutely wasn't. Okay, so now that I've shown you that these two different portions of the Bible that talk about Nephilim, what it means and how some people are misunderstanding the translations, now you see the actual translations. Now let's go into, well, okay, what are all these really big giants to us that we have seen, throughout our history? Then what actually are they? Well, I'm going to show you now. Okay, so surprisingly, a lot of people don't know this or understand it, but everything used to be a lot bigger. Not just people. People were bigger, but plants were bigger, animals were bigger. If you think about it, it makes sense with God and His wisdom. As the world was less populated by humans, there was much more room. So there was fewer animals and fewer people, so it makes sense that God would have made everything a lot bigger, right? And as people began to multiply, God started making things smaller and smaller. The animals, the plants, the everything. In fact, if we look at what dinosaurs actually were, they were most likely things that we already have, like reptiles and turtles and alligators. Now, granted, I do think that some of the dinosaurs did go extinct, but I don't know that all the dinosaurs that we've come or been led to believe actually existed, like the T-Rex and stuff like that. Yes, it's possible. We just don't know for 100% sure because we've been lied to about so much. And the Vatican has hid so much from us, supposedly destroyed skulls, broken them into pieces, dumped them into the ocean. So there's a whole lot that has been hidden from us so that we won't believe in God. We won't believe in the Bible, People think things are myths, but they're not. And Ron Wyatt, he, as you know, he found Noah's Ark, and he found the crossing that from Egypt that the Israelites crossed over during the parting of the Red Sea. He found Jacob's grotto. He found the Ark of the Covenant. And I believe he actually did find the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, after you find Noah's Ark and all these other things, why would you need to lie about it? He didn't try and make any money off of it. He didn't go try and write a bestseller book. None of that stuff. So I absolutely do believe him on that stuff, which I'm sure most of you do. If you haven't looked into him, go look into him. Amazing story of everything that he found and his discoveries. But there might be some clips you haven't seen. And whenever he found Noah's Ark, he found the house that Noah and them lived in. And he found a gravestone. And on the grave marker was a picture of 8 people with, I guess the doves is what flew out to check the land on there, and a rainbow. And he's pretty sure it was Noah's wife that was buried there, her sarcophagus. Now, he did get to measure the sarcophagus, and he measured it around 18 feet. And sadly, somebody stole it, dug her up and, stole her, and then sold her on the black market. But 18 feet. And we know from the picture that was on the tombstone that Noah was a little bit taller than her. So it makes sense that he was around 20 feet tall, maybe, He was taller than 18 feet. And if you think about it, you can only imagine how tall Adam and Eve were. I mean, they were the only 2 people in the land, right? But I'm going to let you see this video, and you'll see that they do still have some of the bones that were in the area. Because, Noah and his entire family were going to be at least that tall. I think when people age started to decline, they started to get smaller and smaller. And if you think about it, look, I mean, we still see people getting smaller and smaller today. Not just people, animals. I mean, look at dogs, right? But undoubtedly, people are still getting smaller and smaller as the world multiplies. Alright, we'll take a look at this video, and then I'll come back to comment on it with you.
Earlier, when we showed you it was the very second day that Ron was there,
Right.
and he saw an old house and he saw these tombstones.
Yeah.
He's going to talk a little bit more about that.
So anyway, we, shall we say, shared the information of this discovery with somebody that, you know, was just such a wonderful Christian that, you know, and I've since learned that all of these people that come and tell you how wonderful Christian they are aren't wonderful Christians. If they really are, they won't be trying to convince people of it. But at that time I was naive, so I told him where these things were. After I left the area, he paid a villager there 400 American dollars to dig up Noah's wife's grave. Well, there's a law that says you can't dig up graves in Turkey. Mm-hmm. And so to get around that, they broke up these headstones. Now I have photographs of these that I took back in 1977. But I was under the impression that they were going to be there and I could do a better job of photographing them, you know, clean some of the age material off so you get a good clear picture of it. I didn't do that, and I wish now I had. But these people busted all of these, scattered them around so that if they were caught digging, that they could say they were digging for water.
The pictures that you did take, do they show the
Very
petroglyphs?
vaguely.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as clear as I would like it to be.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I'd like to have done a rub on these. You know, you can make a latex plaster thing and get a perfect cast of what's on there. Mm-hmm. And I would like to have done that, but again, I did not anticipate these good Christians doing that sort of thing, you know, to destroy the evidence for money. That was very, shall we say, I learned a very painful lesson there. But anyway, they dug up Noah's wife, and she was a giant individual. Her sarcophagus is 18 feet in length, and it's stored in the Anatolia Museum in Ankara. It's not on public display, but there are some giant sarcophagus that can be seen, you know, back from that period of time. Well, they took from her skeleton enough gold and jewels that they were able to sell them for over $100 million, US dollars, on the black market in Istanbul. Now all that's left of her skeleton, to the best of my knowledge, are a few hands of bones, fingers, bones, phalanges. As usual, the lowest paid individual takes the fall. Well, they caught the villager that had supervised the excavation of this grave, and they questioned.
Now, I'd like to finish today by sharing one more thing with you.
Okay.
One time when we were out there looking at where the grave had been dug up, Ron and I were busy looking for pieces of the tombstone. You know, we found some,
Right.
but there was a lady with us, and this was so funny, and I'll never forget it. And I'm not going to mention her name because I don't want to humiliate her. She had a real Southern drawl. I know I don't, but she said, "Looks like somebody's been out here eating chicken."
Huh.
And Ron said, "What do you mean?" And she pointed to something, and we looked down, and he picked up what she thought were chicken bones, brought them home, had them investigated, and they are human finger bones.
Oh, wow.
And here they are. Let's see.
There you go.
They all fit together. And you can see how long that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And interestingly, she had a touch of arthritis.
Oh, wow. A little higher?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, a little higher. Can you see that?
A little bit higher.
Right there.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
And we've never really talked about these very much because a lot of people have some strange ideas. But Ron talked about, how things were much bigger
Yeah.
before the flood.
Right.
And we know that. All we have to do
Yeah.
is look at the fossil record
Yeah.
and all. But
So, as you can see, this is something that actually quite a few Christians already know and understand. But for those of you who don't, I want you to be able to see this so that you can come to know and understand it too. We're at a point where a lot of people are seeing these things and know they're there, but they're all seeming to do videos and stuff saying that these are descendants of Nephilim and that the Nephilim still survive somehow. And that's not true. We can tell it from the Bible. So what is true is that some people just got the genetic marker to make them bigger, and seems to have run through families and stuff, just like some families get the genetic marker for blue eyes or blonde hair, or as we see even now, some families are just taller. They play a lot of basketball and stuff like that, but all these past giants, they weren't Nephilim. They just got the gene from our ancient ancestors. And if you think about it, everything used to be bigger and stronger. Everything we see today is a watered down, weaker version of its former self. Like you look at dogs, right? All dogs came from the direwolf, which was huge and mighty, right? Household cats, they came from lions and tigers. And so I hope that you can kind of see it and understand it a little better now, because it's not just the humans. Even the trees were great big, right? As a lot of y'all have seen, I'm going to show you some video of that as well in case you haven't. And the trees that were cut down by the angels before the flood so that none of the giants or any of the people could try and climb up it. They said the tree extended all the way to heaven, right? Not even just one of them, possibly a lot of them, but we know there was a lot of giant trees that were cut down. And we've got the proof of that. It's out there and you've seen it before. Some of you don't even realize it. And then, plants and animals. So you've got to think, okay, well, we've got proof of all these giant plants, these giant mushrooms, these giant elephants that used to exist. Were they descendants of Nephilim too? Well, of course not. They weren't Nephilim animals. They weren't Nephilim plants. You got to stop and think about it. If they were bigger, it stands to reason that everything used to be bigger. And looking at some of, these other pictures, we even got these giant books and these giant doorways. It's proof, it's undoubtable that humans used to be much bigger. And obviously with these giant books, they were civilized they weren't running around, biting the heads off people, eating them in half. There's even silverware and stuff that's much bigger. They used doors, they had clothes. And the other thing is we can obviously see is, they've found these giant bones and skeletons all over the earth, all over the place. From Texas, Native Americans, to Europe and Russia and China and the Asian continents, they all had them too. We can see them everywhere here. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there weren't Nephilim and that they weren't great big. There absolutely was. I completely believe that. I can just only imagine how big they actually were. I mean, think about it. If humans were 18, 20 feet tall, or maybe even Adam and Eve were bigger, you can only imagine how big the Nephilim actually were. They could have been just gigantic. But with that said, they did not survive the flood. And I know a lot of people are wanting to say that. In fact, most people are, but that's just not true. And as far as the trees, I'm going to show a video right now of more of the giant trees so that you can see it as well. And take a look at this, and then I'll be right back.
Within the Black Hills of Dakota, petrified remains of these once enormous organisms can still be found. Presumably, they can also be discovered in many other parts of the world. Yet within the Black Hills, it seems the prehistoric remains have avoided the deluge of sediment which has been experienced elsewhere, subsequently burying the evidence under several meters of earth. Petrified, enormous trees that, when alive, would have soared into the air, matching in height many of today's modern skyscrapers. Opened to the public in 1929, an entire island, 50 by 100 miles in size, covered with the perfectly preserved petrified remains of a once gigantic forest. Trees of incredible and seemingly impossible sizes, destroyed by a cataclysm which made them collapse in unison. Now recognized as one of the largest outcroppings of fossilized petrified wood anywhere on the surface of the Earth, it is a rare natural insight into the enormity of Earth's ancient wildlife. Quote, "Here is just the beginning of an astounding photographic documentation of this petrified island, a little glimpse of an entirely unknown condition upon the Earth. It is a major historical discovery that, if embraced, will cause major upheaval within the science and religious communities," said Joseph C. Bennett from BeholdGiants.com. Scientists assume that the maximum height of a tree was 425 feet from the ground. At this height, the tree's ability to pump nutrients is supposedly overcome by gravity. However, Joseph, along with several other astute researchers, have discovered the remnants of ancient trees within the area, which would have had a circumference of over a half a mile. The Devil's Tower, coincidentally also within Dakota, has been argued for many years by many people to actually be that of a once enormous petrified tree. The formation of its rocky surface does indeed appear to be reminiscent of tree bark, yet many will argue against such a premise, or indeed the possibility, based on traditional rather than more modern and controversial understandings of the past capabilities of plant and animal life. Thankfully, as more research is undertaken and more become aware of these amazing places, the possibility becomes even more likely.
Okay, so see, now you've seen the trees and some of the other pictures in the last couple of videos. I hope this kind of shows and proves to you that, you understand now that everything that we've seen is not Nephilim, and not to, believe all these other videos you're seeing out there. I heard one man who is supposed to be a minister make a comment that, well, obviously what actually happened is all the Nephilim were killed, but the angels came down and did it again. They took women for wives and had more children, which we know there's no way that happened. I mean, look, the angels begged for God's forgiveness, and they've been imprisoned down in the abyss or the pits of hell for 4,000 years, 5,000 years now. There's no way, and they begged for forgiveness. There's no way that some angels are going to go and do that again. I mean, they learned their lesson, and all the other angels definitely saw by example. Plus, if that had happened, it would be written about in the Bible. Come on, we know that would be there, so that's out too. The real truth, and I hope I've shown and proved to you at this point now, between the Bible and all the pictures, is that, and by common sense, is that everything used to be bigger and has just gotten smaller with God's wisdom as everything has multiplied on our earth. I'm going to leave you with a few more short video clips here and some more pictures, and I would love to hear what you think about this, and leave me some comments. What are some of the most significant pictures that you've seen out there, and videos, but I hope that I have shown and proved to you. Now, there's a whole lot more videos out there of giants, and we know the story of David and Goliath. While Goliath was a giant to David and to most normal people, he was just a really tall human. He had gotten a gene from our ancient ancestors that made him much bigger, like lots of people throughout history have. We see it less and less now, but there still are giants out there compared to us, right? I think 8-9 feet or something like that is what's still out there and alive today. So, it's not unheard of. I don't think any of the giants that have ever been around were ever just enormous over other people like Nephilim would have been. But again, there's a big difference between what's giants to us and actual Nephilim. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, please leave a comment, and please share it around if you want to, so other people can come to know the truth in these things. There's so much deception out there. And one thing I will also bring up, if you noticed, whenever the Israelites, before they went to the land of milk and honey, I hope that you noticed that God didn't tell them, just sit, kneel, and pray, and I'll go wipe out all the Canaanites for you. No, he told them to go and take the land of milk and honey from the Canaanites, and God would be with them to protect them. So I know we've got a bunch of Christians that think that we're just supposed to pray and God will handle everything, but that's not the way God works. God wants us to do things for ourselves. We pray before, and God will be with us. He will protect us, and He will be our mighty hand. But we've got to stop as Christians thinking that we just sit around and expect God to handle everything. Everything's out of our hands. We just sit there and pray and hope He handles it. That's not what God expects, and it never has. God is outside of time. He never changes. His commandments are everlasting. And we can read the Bible and tell from our history what God expects from us now. I love you all, brothers and sisters, and I hope you are blessed. I hope you're looking up, because we know our time draws nigh. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm still looking up, and our watch is not over. I hope you all have a blessed day, and I will see you in the next video. Please be sure and look at my other videos. Got some pretty interesting ones out there, I think. I'll see you soon.
Do you see this? Do you see this? It's freaking nature, and it's freaking awesome. Woo!
Oh, no,